Channel here over on Subscribestar. So everyone seems to hate Tim Pool on the right and the left. He's like this moderate middle of the bell curve, which actually the area under that middle of the bell curve is quite extensive enough to get him a pretty big audience. I don't get mad at him because if you don't make videos on the YouTube platform, you don't know what the censorship is like, and you think it's so easy to make videos. Yes, it is easy to make videos. It is very easy to make videos. Making videos that escape the censor, that's not so easy. You get a channel, you think, oh, I'll get on there, I can make videos, speak my piece, and you go, oh, hey, they, they gave me a strike. Oh, hey, there goes the channel. What happened? What terms of service did I violate? Oh, they didn't tell me. There's no way to find out. Yeah, they don't tell you because they don't want you to go around it. It's like, that feels like they just want to keep that in their back pocket as like a secret trump card of just banning wrong thinkers. It's like that's what is essentially it worked out to be is they will ban wrong thinkers. So even in some small way, I understand how difficult it is to make videos. And you listen to someone like Tim Pool or the Quartering, and you're hearing people who are masters of the algorithm, and they are experts in they know exactly where the invisible elephant is in the room, especially the Quartering, because he's funny about it at least, and he does as much as he can while not while not passing up the money coming from YouTube. Like he does. Thing is, even like the pop culture channels, people look at them and think it's just fluff. It's just fluff. Not really. It's a every facet in the culture where every time somebody comes out with making fun of like Disney Star Wars from 2015 or all the other pop culture movies that come out, you're pushing back against their narrative, but you're also pushing back against their ideas, which is why Doomcock, Quartering, Flash, and a bunch of other people, if you see those people on Twitter, the left wing hates those people because they know how powerful these voices are. And they know, I like, why did they lose their mind over diversity in comics, talking about comic books? It's like because he wasn't talking about comic books; he was talking about this culture war. So then the other thing about Tim Pool, and I'm gonna have to kind of say this carefully so I don't glow in the trees from orbit, is he's having a hard time getting pressured, getting threats of like endless threats of violence against him, and he's like, this dude is, to us, he'd be left to center politically speaking. He's getting swatted. He gets threats of violence, and he got I don't know what happened to where he had someone at his place had to get out in a shootout with someone who was trespassing in their kitchen. Probably just robbers, probably. But I mean, you have to review the security camera later on to tell for sure. But this guy's he's getting a lot of stress. Like when you're over target, you're getting that anti-aircraft fire. And this guy's got 40 millimeters just all around him, and he's on this dude is right in the middle of that bell curve. He's not a right wing person, because to be fair, if he was a right wing person, he wouldn't be allowed on YouTube. Like all the good right wing channels that helped radicalize us, that far right wing YouTube pipeline back in 2016. Which yeah, there's some truth to that, but it's like if you view the right wing as a logical progression, then yeah, it's like everything and anything will move to the right. It's if you have an open mind. It's like where I look at Sargon. You can look at him 5 or 10 years ago, and you go, you're going to be, if you have an open mind, he's intelligent and he has an open mind. Well, then he will be where we are. Like if you're ahead of him a little bit, well, he will eventually. And honestly, like he'll probably eventually surpass us wherever we are now. But the thing is, all the stress that Tim Pool gets from the left wing, and my joke was like, unless it's some false flag right winger who's doing all this kind of stuff to kind of push Tim to the left to the right, he's like all this stuff makes him, and it's the thing is it's I honestly don't think it is, because it's not just the swatting, it's that you see the stuff, the hatred he gets on Twitter from the left wing. I mean the vitriol, just the incandescent, honestly, it's mental illness. Like the left wing mental illness is you have to see it. You get on Twitter for a week solid, and you go through and you go through this tweet, like these tweets here, these three tweets, and you see the people who are like passive aggressively trolling him or denying his story, and then you look through their tweet history. Like if you spend a week doing this little bit of research, you kind of will understand the mind and the problem the country is in. And like if you did like a week of research, you'd probably come to the conclusion that I don't think there's a solution to this. I think like there's irreconcilable differences. Some groups are so far apart. So why does the left wing hate Tim so much? Well, he did have a tweet, I think a week ago, where he came out anti-grooming, and the left wing took that personally. And that, if you're on the left, I know nobody on the left is listening to this. It's like if I was on the left, man, I would be cutting that anchor, that far left anchor. I would cut that anchor free. Just and say, listen, we're gonna have to. We just can't. We can't have this is the bridge too far for most people. But they're not going to do that. It's going to turn out to be an anchor that is just going to probably drag them down, because most people are looking at the kids stuff and like, so you got armed Antifa defending essentially Weimar drag queen story hour. That's weird. Even if you're on the left, you're of whatever age you're on the left. There's a lot of people who look at that and go, yeah, adults, liberal, libertarian, whatever adults want to do is fine, but the kids stuff. So armed Antifa defending this stuff, it just percolates in the back of people's mind. They see that and they know that like it's not that's not a good thing, and it also like heads in a very dark direction. So he came out anti-grooming, and they took that as a threat. And it's like, I read the tweet. It wasn't a threat. He's just saying what I said. It's a hill that it's if you're on the left, I hope they don't abandon it. I hope they doubled it down on it, because I want them to accelerate as much as possible. I want them to be as unpalatable to the normie as they possibly can be. And like the far left doesn't understand how like the optics of their side. Like you could be as blue haired and polyamorous and all this kind of adult relationships you want, and most people don't give a good gosh darn about any of that kind of stuff. But as soon as like the kid things, the one thing that stuck in people's mind was the babies born alive, and then they would delete them. And then up in Canada now they're like, oh, so you have a hangnail? Would you like to enter the self deletion chamber? Like, I can't pay my rent, so I'm going to be put. This is just Brave New World 1984 overlap territory. It's like, yeah, it's all actually happening in Canada. Simmons did a commercial for that, and I downloaded the commercial and put it up on Odyssey and Gab. The self deletion commercial coming from Simmons up in Canada. It's like, oh, that's all actually happening. So the baby's born alive thing, that was an eye opener for for a lot of people, and then there's a couple other things. What was gosh, hold on, what was the other? Oh, and then the BLT stuff dealing with kids. That's like right out of Don't Say Anything in the Comments. Magnus Hirschfeld's, that kind of story. I've done BitChute videos on that. I mean, it's just it's like it just never ends, or it just kind of repeats in this kind of heliocentric thing. So the modern left is kind of the end result of 50 years of cultural Marxist brainwashing. They are the participation trophy generation, but they're also the words or violence generation. They've been told their whole life that, I'll say that the fashionable ones are the most dangerous people on earth. Objectively, that doesn't make sense. They're not even the penultimate group. It doesn't have to make sense. It's brainwashing. In fact, I don't think they're even in the top 10. The left used to question everything. Those days, like that was a phrase, that was a bumper sticker in the 60s and 70s. Those days are long gone. Now, if you question the religion of the left, you get the response on Twitter, yikes, my guy, touch grass, bad take, friend, bad look, friendo, just yikes. They have this copy and paste mentality. It's hive mentality, where they want to stay in the center of the hive, so they repeat safe words and phrases that have kind of been pre-approved for a long time, which is funny, because if you go back like 20 or 30, 20, just 20 years, you go back 20 years and you look at the left 20 years ago, the left 20 years ago, if you're speaking like they were speaking 20 years ago, they would think that you're on the far right because you didn't trust the media or corporations. That's how subverted and corrupted the modern left is. So it's when they repeat the phrase like that, that's a signal, it's a warning that you shouldn't ask questions. This isn't the left. This is the subverted authoritarian left. They brainwash people to this stimulus response situation where it bypasses cognition. If they hear a trigger word, you're fashionable, then they identify the target as the enemy and anything is permissible. Everything they learned about fashionableness, they learned from Hollywood. They don't know what they don't know, and they feel threatened when you bring that up and really defensive. You present them with a stack of books, but they don't have the attention span to read the books anymore. They literally trust Hollywood over research materials. A few years ago, the left would be the first to say, don't trust the government or the media. But now that is a far right dog whistle because they know that the left controls the media, government, banks, and big tech. To say the media is corrupt is to identify yourself as a far right wing type. That's how screwed up the left wing is now. So, let me get down to the other. Yeah, you got to be insane to break into a West Virginia house. And with like a dozen people at the house, yeah, that's not, who are like they're all carrying at least. So it is kind of nuts. So this is this example of Tim Pool's house. He's got some ranch out in West Virginia. The people who've been out there say like it's kind of out on its own road. Like you're not just gonna wander across it accidentally. I'm sure he's got 50 cameras on the house, and then he like if I was doing it, I'd have trail cameras set up also, and a bunch of other things. Um, those bear traps aren't legal. Um, yeah, some risks you just accept. So who knows exactly what happened, but I'm gonna use it as an example anyway. Honestly, it would you'd have to look at the cameras to see what kind of car they pulled up in. If they pull up in a car, that means one thing. They pull up in a van, that means something else. Because they're able to take stuff out of there. So it could have been just an ordinary thief. That's very likely, but this guy's been threatened for a long time, and the Twitter kids and the adults with childlike brains view him as that was one of the responses. Well, they victim blame, right? It's okay to victim blame if they're your ideological opposite. Then that's okay. And they do that with body shaming too. And the really effed up thing is this come from somebody who's on the right in many regards, who is the first to make politically incorrect jokes about BLT stuff, but as long as they're understood to be jokes. But they use gayness as a pejorative, and it just kind of slips their attention, and then you bring it to their attention, and like suddenly they get on the back foot, like, oh yeah, you just like you were implying that you're accusing this person of being that, like, I bet these guys are secretly BLT, like, but you're using it as a pejorative. You realize that, and then it kind of like they don't know what to say about that. Anyway, so he's been threatened by mentally ill people because they view him as enabling fashionable ones, and I'm not exactly sure what guests he's had on the show that were wearing Hugo Boss. I'm trying to think of like the further. I listen to him like once every 2 months. I just haven't heard that many shows, but if he's on YouTube, then no, he's not. I don't know who the furthest right wing guy on the show that he's had. I guess it must have been Fuentes is probably the furthest right wing guy. I'm not counting that rapper guy because one, he's half crazy. Like, even though he's kind of he's loosely on our side and he's asking interesting questions, I'm gonna be the first to admit that he's not playing with the full deck. But I'm like, what guests does he have? Like, if the guests that he has on, the left wing thinks those guys are fashionable ones. You're saying so the middle of the political bell curve is now what like they do this kind of stuff where they go like Tim Pool and Sargon, those guys are Hugo Boss, but then you point to somebody who's objectively to the right politically of those guys, which many people are, and you go, so what are those guys? Are they super Hugo Boss? And then you point to somebody like at the furthest ends of the political spectrum, and so what about those guys at the far? It's like you're saying the whole political spectrum that's to the right. And then you break it down, you go one step further, you go, so you're saying anyone who isn't you is Hugo Boss. Yes, that's the all or nothing thinking of the modern far left wing right now. So no, he's not enabling fashionable ones because he's having conversations. Who valued conversation? Who valued free speech and protecting kids from grooming? The Nazis. That's what they were famous for. Oh, that's good to know. Makes careful note of that. That's the hill you want to die on. It's like, in your words, not in ours. No, having conversations is not anything more like that. Like Plato and Aristotle, the Socratic method. What happened to all that kind of stuff? They view words as violence. Not really, but I mean, like, I don't know if the thing is. This is why their handlers don't want their foot soldiers to talk to anybody, because they know that they're on kind of shaky philosophical ground. You're in a cult if they prevent you from talking to outsiders. And I'm not talking about like preventing some left-wing kid from being indoctrinated by a group, but I mean, like, if one person talks to you, the handlers will run over That's a cult. That's cult behavior. That's always been cult behavior. If someone prevents you from speaking to someone outside the in group, you're in a cult. The right wing does not do that. You can talk to anyone. You can read any book you want. You can listen to any speeches you want with the English translations. Anything. You want to read Karl Marx, the Communist Manifesto? Anything you want. It's like, hey, I'm on the right in that regard. Oh, people who told you to educate yourself and didn't censor any materials, that's the Hugo Boss team. Like, none of the things you're saying are objectively true, and you keep saying them because these people are in this deep echo chamber. Anyway, they view words as violence, but they hear that phrase, they just repeat it. They don't actually believe it. They don't actually stop to think about anything, because everything's an appeal to emotion. They have been taught not to discuss because they already know the conclusion, so they don't need to have the discussion. So they censor and deplatform because they label someone fashionable, then that is the conclusion. They don't need to define it. They don't argue it. They don't have rational debate. Iraq, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. They don't need to do any of that because it's the alpha and omega is just the conclusion. The bad news is that there's no solution to this because the government schools have already subverted. There is no fixing the corrupt school system. Only home schools or small private neighborhood schools can fix it. You can't fix it from within, only without. The schools are Bolshevik propaganda. Libs of TikTok has shown the filth and degeneracy. She is doing the Lord's work. You need small-based nationalist schools. And honestly, people are so far apart that it would be better to split the country into different identities. It's funny about her. They call her Hugo Boss. And you can look up to see who she is, her name. Plot twist, she's not Hugo Boss. Neither is Andy Nago. Or Tim Pool. I mean, you look at or even Fuentes or Kanye, you look at these people like, so none of these guys are white, right? I mean, the Libs of TikTok is that Abrahamic religion, not Christianity. It's like she's the one you're calling Hugo Boss. It's weird when you say it out loud, and then you put them in the position of like, so how do you square that? How do you solve that equation? It's like you're trying to divide by zero, and then you just like find a shining object and deflect and move on. I mean, it's just as crazy as it sounds. So the schools are Bolshevik propaganda. They have been for quite a long time. My point is that by law, de facto as well as de jure, it's probably time to split off. The issue is the left. The issue is on the left. My evidence is that 99% of the IRL riots have been, in real life, riots have been left-wing. You have brainwashed kids in left-wing cities destroying their own cities. We're speaking truth to power. We're going through the upper middle class residential neighborhoods where people have BMWs and the lower model Teslas. Oh, okay. I would go to the city council and the mayor's office, and have peaceful, legal, constitution protected protest. I wouldn't go to residential neighborhoods. Why would you do that? Unless you're trying to get them like against you. It's like, by all means, continue to go through those residential neighborhoods and knock over trash cans. Please. No, I'm not going to encourage the harassment of Tim Pool, but strategically, it's like that's all helping. That all that does is help. You think by threatening Tim Pool with violence and his crew with violence, you're going to bring him to suddenly join your side? How does that work in your world? They don't accomplish anything by destroying their own cities. The mayors and governors don't care, though that does appear to be changing slowly. It seems like after 5 years of mostly peaceful riots and looting, even the left wing is starting to get tired of crime and inflation. So now at the federal level, they want the Republicans. They want to know what the Republicans will do about crime, but only at the federal level. Because, I mean, they've been trying to defund the police and hire social workers for the past how many years, but they don't want to do any of this stuff at the city or state level. They want to pass the blame to the feds. The local government, you've got, hey, thanks, is it Scott Wiener or Anthony Weiner? No, Anthony Weiner's the Podesta guy. Scott Wiener's a San Francisco rep who passed some reprehensible laws that it's really challenging to just make these videos without editing. The local government doesn't want to stop crime. They want to pass the buck on to somebody else. The whole situation is FUBAR. It's better to split into regions, lock all the low trust types into Portland and Seattle. If they actually enjoy high crime, then it's better to simply create borders. To see the level of hate that Tim Soyboy Milquetoast Pool gets is nuts. He has a big platform and he's monetized on YouTube. He's not right wing. The real right wing was banned off YouTube 4 years ago. I think was when, I don't know when they. I don't even want to name the channels, but I mean they're like all the YouTube used to be an entirely different environment. They had some great channels on that. It's like the channels weren't too great. I mean, hell, my God, if you listen to like, who was that girl? Rage After Storm and those kind of channels, like that stuff was allowed on YouTube, and I think that was like 2016 YouTube, and some of the discussions they were having, you look back on that, like it's inconceivable that YouTube ever had that kind of stuff. It's like, so a free and fair, open platform for people to have a discussion. Yeah, we can't have free speech because if we allow free speech, it's gonna hurt free speech. It's like, you guys are just like just smoking. Like, I don't know what they're smoking. Anyway, so Tim Pool gets a lot of hate. YouTube has total control of the narrative until Twitter X gets off the ground, which is going to be the YouTube clone, I suppose, kind of like Odyssey and BitChute. Well, the live streaming. It'll be a live streaming. That would be awesome if he decides to go that route, and if he does, it changes everything. And I think he kind of almost has to go that route to like to have a live streaming platform on Twitter, but with less censorship, and then they'll have to revisit that issue of Google and Apple App Store censorship, and then he comes back to the issue of operating system, using belting a cell phone, a tablet, like a Chromebook equivalent, using, I think he called his operating system Pi or something, and then having an app store. It's like there's no reason not to do that. That's a multi-billion-dollar. There's you can tell in some like tech environments where there's an empty spot on the map, and where it's a highly censorious environment, but there's no reason for it to be other than this cultural Marxist. Then you know that there's this empty spot that can be exploited by tech that comes in and says, "Oh, we're gonna have the Tesla phone, and then we're gonna have a freer speech app store." It's like, oh, well, then you don't need Google and Apple anymore. You'll just get the Tesla phone. You'll use Twitter X to live stream. It's like you can stay on Twitter for this vertical microblogging platform, and then you'll also have like the video hosting platform and live stream hosting platform. And Twitter's already monetized. And now you have an app store, now you've got hardware, and suddenly you find that the Apple sales start slowly decreasing. And then Apple and Google are in a position of, well, the only way to fix this is to start pulling back on censorship on our own platforms. It's like there's one guy that's perfectly poised to do this, and that's Elon Musk. So the mental illness on the left is absolutely insane. And if you look at the Antifa arrest pictures, you can see what can only be described as Untermensch, drug addiction, mental illness. And the thing is, it's not exactly their fault. This destruction of society has been planned. The modern left was created by like 70 years of planning. There is zero chance of fixing this within the system. It is way too far gone. You need to separate the left off into their own states, counties, regions, whatever. They have to live with the decisions they made. You know, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, whatever those cities that are having, like San Francisco's, it's a hell of an example of a city that's just so up its own backside, and the crime just keeps getting slowly boiling that. And the thing is, honestly, like even in San Francisco, they're boiling the frog a little too much. But you look at the people and you go, yeah, but you guys all voted. I should have put in airplane mode. Shit, you guys all voted for all this stuff. And it's not bad enough for them to vote differently, but eventually it will cross a point where they have to vote differently, because I mean it's like you're just turning themselves into this. Like you took what was a nice San Francisco at one time was a pretty decent city. Um, Anyway, so almost every left wing policy is poison. The thing is, they need to just live in the socialist state that they created. Their ideas are bad and they can't be defended. That's why they have to censor and deplatform. If you have left wing groups demanding to fund the police and taxpayer funded everything, and they do that, taxpayer funded everything, health at every size, and then open borders, which is kind of a misnomer because it's not open implying two-way, it's a one-way street. So you're literally saying that you have this tax base that you want to pay, you want to fund all this other losses on the system. So I mean, eventually you run out of money. So I'm saying like if there's people who don't want to do that, the best thing to do is create your own regions where you can't allow these people to just move into your regions and vote certain ways, to have your own state constitutions that are different, much more powerful. And yes, I know what I'm saying. I know how serious this is, but You also see the society you have before you. So when you like you want taxpayer funded everything and open borders, you know the math on that doesn't it? Why don't we just print more money? Yeah, and you know the funny thing about splitting off is the thing that triggers the puppet masters is the concept of debt. Go, oh, so I can't help but notice you split off into your own region, so you still owe the central banks $1 trillion. Like nah, we'll let the bankers pay the bank. That's I did another video for that on inflation. Like the whole world, all these sovereign nations are all it's all suffering from inflation. Weird. So who holds the debt, and why don't you just cancel it? If it's like if sovereign nations are owing debt to banks, it's like why don't you just seize the banks and cancel the debt? But it's like that's a video that if you had a bigger platform would get you Epstein, which is funny because four crypto guys just passed away suddenly and untimely. Four crypto guys, and one guy knew it was going to happen. He was posting on social media. He said he knew they were coming from him for him, and he did. He was one of the four crypto guys got removed from this mortal coil. It's like he literally said it happened. And all four guys. It's like, oh, that's weird. Is anyone gonna look into that? Nope. Huh. A lot of weird stuff that nobody's looking into. It's kind of interesting having a small platform be able to say a lot of this stuff. I mean, because you know they can't hit everything. Anyway, so it would be better for right wing groups to start pushing to separate. Will it happen? I don't know. Inertia turns out to be a hell of a bitch for things. But the thing is, society doesn't last forever. You can peacefully split, or you can devolve into civil war. And I know this simple Tim Pool story is doing a lot of heavy lifting. But Tim Pool and his little compound out in West Virginia is kind of a microcosm of a lot of different elements going on right now. People just want to be left alone, and free speech, and other people who can't have that. They socialism can't have free speech because then you talk about it's like in 1984 where they make predictions for food rations, and it's like the numbers are all over the place, but it always gets better every year, even when it's worse because you just control the newspaper. It's like that's Animal Farm in 1984 are fascinating reads because you look around, especially Animal Farm, you look around and see what you do, you see what you see now, and you're like, that's the same psychology, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, they're kind of similar books, but they're and it's interesting. Like he felt so passionately about that he wrote two really good books about the topic. Um, so I know this simple Tim Pool story is I'm extrapolating quite a bit from it, but here's the thing: if you got through this whole video, tell me I'm wrong about Tim Pool. Show me a different way forward. And the other thing that kind of popped into my mind at the end of this is I was thinking about Kyle Rittenhouse is on Twitter, and he's tweeting, and he's like every tweet is just outrages the left. But it's like we got this high definition video, which I posted on Odyssey and BitChute of all the stuff that happened. And when you posted it on YouTube, they took it down. And when you posted it on Twitter, they took it down. And so Twitter and Elon is releasing these, releasing a lot of hidden information. And so the Rittenhouse guy is going, it would be cool if the stuff that pertained to me, was starting to get released. And people are realizing the power that Twitter had, the power to manipulate society, to foment this insane amount of discord. Eventually, everyone's going to have to come to the realization, like, yeah, we're kind of ruled by big tech. I mean, I remember Cecil talking about it like a year ago, where it's like he had that epiphany, and it's like, he's a reasonable left wing guy, and he came to that conclusion. It's like, yeah, do we want to be ruled by big tech? The thing about Kyle Rittenhouse and the Rosenbaum guy is that Rosenbaum was released from a 5150 hold that morning. And I think he had his some stuff in a plastic bag, like, I don't know, some clothing or toiletries that you give you when you get out of the hospital. That's just, and the thing is, he's probably homeless, and he's like there's a lot of homeless, mentally ill, drug addicted people who are tied up in Antifa, and it's not like I'm not angry at them, because it's like, how do you get angry at a whole failed system? That's a society that failed him, but it's also a society that started to fail post World War II. Socialism, liberalism, feminism, that all led to this. Now, that's just my opinion. If you're on the left, you hear that and you think, oh, these things are great, we need to do more of these things. Fair enough. But I think that a society that thinks socialism works should live in their own state to live as they please. if you want to, these polyamorous type of relationships, or whatever the stuff that is just like popular among the left, and turning kids into catamites and all this kind of stuff. You want to all these things that to me sound like dystopian, horrific, waking nightmares. If you want to do like, we're gonna build the Chaz. Like, okay, we're gonna defund the police, but the Chaz is gonna walk around with armed enforcers. It's like, I know that you'll turn into Liberia instantly, and there's a lot of people on the left who, when it comes time to, like, we're gonna take a state, and everyone agrees, like, okay, the left wing, they can take a state as an experimental left wing state, the right wing will take a state, or just split a state down the middle, and you can live according to your as you wish, and one side lives with law and order, and one side lives like Liberian warlord, cannibal warlords of Liberia, Chaz. It's like, what will happen to the left wing. Like, there's no, even kids on the left wing, if they're over 20, they look at the left and they've cracked a YouTube video on Liberia, and it's like, what will happen to that left wing. If you took Oregon and you just split it north to south, and a horizontal line, and you literally just did it. If America just got so fed up and go, okay, north is going to be the left wing socialist utopia, and south would be the right wing nationalist utopia. What do you think would happen after a year? What would happen. Oh, so we're gonna have law and order, and we're gonna value marriage and going to church, and like, we're not gonna have prawn, that kind of adult content. We're not gonna, it's like, try to dial things back to a 1950 lifestyle. And here's the thing: you're on the left, you disagree with that. Okay, fine. Well, here, let's create a separate state for you. You can live in the north of Oregon, and that will be you can live as you please. Like, there's nobody, even people on the left would look at that, and when it comes time to go, okay, we'll pack up your things, and it's time for you to move to the north and live according to this socialist utopia, like, they're gonna, like, this, their feet are gonna start dragging, and they're gonna get that sick feeling in the pit of their stomach. Where it's like, yeah, free love and no cops, but everyone is armed, and we're gonna plant a garden in the Chaz. It's like, yeah, that'll work for a week. I mean, like, I'm sure you guys will keep your shit together for a week. And then after that, it's like, so there's been quite a few struggle snuggles. Oh, that's just your privilege talking, Karen. Can I go to the South? No, because that's like, you're stealing our resources. So we have to have razor wire to keep you from going to the South. Oh, okay. So this is just like every communist nightmare ever, where they prevent you from leaving. That's weird. Like, obviously what's going to happen. Anyway. Click the links to support the channel here by join the channel on YouTube, and you can get access to the behind the scenes members videos. There's actually quite a few membership videos now, because a lot of videos I upload, and they're kind of like, I listen to them and I go, I don't know. It's kind of right on the edge of being PC and not PC. It's not enough to get a strike, but it's like, it's enough that YouTube doesn't like it. But it's an easy way to support the channel, or you can use subscribe, or have support all. Buddy, we're not giving you shit. I get it. Anyway, like, comments. Oh, the thing about the membership is videos go up there first. So if you do become a member, you can preview the videos, and if I'm trying to get a point across, but it's not working, then let me know in the comments, and I will get those comments. And if it's something that, like, the video shouldn't go up, like, there's one video that, like, the point I was trying to make, it just didn't get across to even people who listen to the channel. Like, they're all like, "This, you're not making the point you think you're making." So, like, I would appreciate if you, like, just tell me in the comments. I'm not one of those ego people. It's like, just tell me. I'm like, okay, well, I won't bother putting the video up if I'm not getting the point across. And anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.